CO2 emissions threaten seafood as ocean acidification spreads across U.S. coastlines. Bum, bum, bum. This is the carbon cycle. The atmosphere is a fast-flowing storage where carbon takes the form of CO2. The surface ocean also, carbon takes the form of CO2, but it merges with H2O, taking the form of CH2O3, which I will explain later. This is also a fast refilling storage, and so is marine life. It is also a fast refilling storage. Same goes for land plants, and however, for the deep ocean and soil, these are both very slow refilling storages, as carbon has to travel from the surface ocean all the way down to the deep ocean, and then needs to take thousands and thousands of years to transform into fossil fuels that then get transferred to soil. This is the carbon cycle after human impact, after the Industrial Revolution. As you can see, the storages, atmosphere, land plants, and surface ocean have gotten considerably bigger, while soil and marine life have shrank. So the reason for this is that humans are taking out fossil fuels from the soil much faster than it can reproduce fossil fuels. So this arrow is getting much bigger as humans are also burning all the fossil fuels and releasing carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Now land plants and surface ocean are taking in all of that carbon dioxide, making these storages get bigger as well. And even though marine life is a fast refilling storage, the CO2 in the ocean makes it hard for marine life to survive, which I will explain later in more detail. And the deep ocean stays the same size. This is the natural water cycle, without any increases or decreases in temperature and much human impact. As you can see, the radiation goes down to all the parts of the water cycle, and here the water from the lake evaporates and condenses in clouds, gets transported, and precipitates when it gets too heavy. At the same time, the snow melts on top of mountains. It causes snow runoff, which means that water runs down the mountain and either goes into the lake by surface flow or goes down into the ground with infiltration and then percolates down into the groundwater storages, which the wells can then utilize to get water. Or it can sublimate, which means that it evaporates directly without going into the liquid phase. Also, plants uptake water from the ground and release it back into the air from evaporation from its leaves or transpiration. This is a water cycle when there's an increase in temperature. As you can see, the radiation areas has gotten bigger, signifying an increase in temperature. So the evaporation is much faster and evaporates more, causing the clouds to form more and form faster, so it will rain more often. Also, it will melt more snow from all of the heat, causing more snow runoff, ultimately causing more infiltration and percolation, which I didn't show here, and more surface flow. There will also be more sublimation and more transpiration, while plant uptake will stay the same, as there will be no increase in temperature. So plants might get dehydrated, I guess. This article is about how shellfish companies along the U.S. coastlines are dropping their production rates because of ocean acidification from CO2 emissions happening across U.S. coastlines. Scientists say that all countries need to reduce CO2 emissions, or else this acidification will get worse and worse. So the natural cycle of carbon has it that carbon dioxide in the atmosphere goes into the ocean, the surface ocean, and gets absorbed by the surface ocean, and then gets circulated into the deep ocean, and then the carbon in the deep ocean gets compressed and turned into fossil fuels, which are coal, oil, and natural gas, which then go into the ground. Now, from the ground, this carbon can go directly out back into the atmosphere, or it can get taken back up by plants and then released back into the atmosphere by respiration. And then the cycle continues. However, the carbon cycle has been altered. In this article, the sea is being acidified because too much CO2 is going into the surface ocean. Why is this happening? Well, because more CO2 is going into the atmosphere. Humans are taking out the fossil fuels from the ground at a faster rate that it can refill, as fossil fuels are a very slow refilling storage. Also, they are burning the fossil fuels, so more carbon dioxide is going into the atmosphere, and then the surface ocean is absorbing lots of that carbon dioxide, as it is also a very fast refilling carbon storage. But then, what is causing the ocean to be acidified? Well, when carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and water, or H2O, from the surface ocean combines, it forms CH2O3, which is carbonic acid. And this carbonic acid turns the ocean from basic to acid. Well then, why is this a problem? Marine creatures with shells, such as shellfish and oysters, make their shells out of calcium carbonate. Calcium carbonate requires the ocean to be basic to form. So when the ocean becomes acid, then this becomes a problem, as shellfish, oysters, and other marine creatures, such as marine creatures with shells, have a very hard time forming their shells. This is why shellfish and oyster companies in the United States are having trouble, because their shellfish and oysters are not forming proper shells, so their quality of their products are getting lower, and shellfish and oysters are getting harder and harder to find. This is significant enough to be in the news, because if things like oysters cannot form their shells, then we won't be able to eat oysters, and who doesn't want to eat oysters? One way to prevent and reduce the ocean acidification is to explore alternative fuel options and stop using fossil fuels. The main reason why so much CO2 is in the atmosphere now is that humans are burning fossil fuels and releasing carbon emissions into the atmosphere. Then all that carbon dioxide gets absorbed directly by the surface ocean, causing ocean acidification. So if we use alternative fuels and cleaner fuels, such as solar energy and wind energy, then there will be much less carbon emissions, and it will also solve the upcoming energy crisis, as the ground and fossil fuels are a very slow refilling carbon storage. So soon, if we keep on using fossil fuels, there will be no more fossil fuels for us to burn as well. So that is the best method for preventing and reducing ocean acidification. The second option is to explore alternative transportation methods instead of riding your own car around. For example, you could ride your bicycle or take the bus. So the bus would be better than taking your own car, because instead of 10 people each taking their own car, which would be 10 cars, then those 10 people could take one bus and only use the fuel that one car would use, which is much more energy efficient and cleaner and greener. Also, a bicycle would be also very good, because it doesn't use any fuel at all, and it has no carbon emissions. Because the problem with cars is they burn gas and oil, which are both fossil fuels, so they release carbon into the atmosphere.